asking yourself, what makes you different? If you said what is the number one way to help dentists today?
I realized every agency and every marketing person I ever talked to were horrible at responding to people.
But he was the one who communicated a before and after and made me feel that the Maryland Bridge that he could insert plus do the cleanings, all the above, that was specific to me as a customer. Imagine creating a dental practice and the headline said, the only practice where you speak to no one to get into your seat.
I literally was like, oh, I obviously do care and I'm really concerned. And what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Or what is this group going to say? Is this going to hurt us? Is this going to help us? Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Go. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I am the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have Alec from NexHealth. He is the marketing director over there, and he's going to be sharing his unique perspective after working at NexHealth for some time now and being in the dental industry of what he's learned about dental, how he's seen offices grow, and he's going to be sharing some insights that you're going to want to listen to. So stay tuned. All right, Alec. So why don't you explain a little bit about what you're seeing out there as far as from a dental side of things, because NexHealth works with tons of dentists. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for dentists to be able to grow their practices?
Well, Gary, I've now been at NexHealth for just over a year. And gosh, I've spent tons of time not only just speaking with dentists over the last year, but got a Maryland Bridge in my mouth. So I've spent a ton of time with my own general dentist, an orthodontist, design, all this stuff, right? Like this guy over here. And kind of what I found over the last year, it's no different than any organization kind of has to approach their marketing, which is really asking yourself, what makes you different? If you said what is the number one way to help dentists today? From at least a marketing perspective, which is kind of my area of, I guess, domain expertise, is really it's really asking yourself the question, what makes you different? What's your brand story? Especially in a market that it's pretty saturated, tons of competitors, tons of people nearby. What's the fundamental thing that makes you different? And how do you then show that difference and show that reasoning to the market in order to attract more patients?
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of times what I've heard, because this is, we go through this with practices, and one of the things we ask them, okay, what are we going to put on your website? What makes you different? It's well, I went to college and we have a very clean facility and we have very, very good technology, really good. And it's okay, but that doesn't make you any different. That makes you exactly like everybody else. And there's assumptions baked into those. So when you went to the doctor, you assumed they went to college. You assumed that they clean it. And you assume that they have technology, right? So getting nailed down on what actually makes you different, as an example, maybe you accept insurances that nobody else accepts. Or maybe you are open hours that other people aren't open. Or maybe you do procedures that other people don't do. Those are the kinds of things that, from a marketing perspective, get a lot of traction. But there's a huge disconnect, I agree, in the dental industry around that.
Yeah, if you ask any dentist their core differentiation, the classical answer right now from everybody I hear is our team, right? But our team is still so generic, right? You're just talking about people. But what is it about people that makes your team so special, right? And explaining that difference is ultimately the difference that needs to be felt to patients who are making a decision about how they're going to be treated, how they're going to be cared for, right? You have to kind of ask what is going on in dentistry. And if you were to explain this to somebody under the age of 5, essentially what's happening is a stranger is placing their fingers in your mouth, right? And that stranger who never has fingers put in their mouth, right, has to trust that things are going to go well.
Yeah.
Right. It is a very bizarre way and procedure. It's a weird way to think about it, but for somebody to communicate in an online way to say, this is, I'm a trustworthy person. And then for a patient to truly understand that, that's hard work, right? Yeah. So for you to just say, oh yeah, my team is the reason that I'm different, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Right. So when you are a dentist, when you are a small SMB owner, when you are running a small independent practice, the first question when you say, what makes you different, at least from my perspective, I just, kind of what I had to do at NexHealth when I came here, trying to make the similarity here between running a dental practice and helping grow a brand for a software company. there's tons of companies just like NexHealth in some capacity, right? Offering patient communication, online booking, reviews, reminders. So you have to ask yourself the question, why is NexHealth different? So where's the best place to start? Well, sure, I can speak with people who I work with, but no better place to start than speaking with your customers, right? Your customers are going to use the language where it's not just going to say, oh, Dr. Dan's dental practice, his team was the best. They're going to say it was Cecilia, who's running the front office. She remembered my birthday, right? Yeah. Or it's going to say that. Oh,
so it's like finding the pain points.
Sorry to disrupt the show, but I got something crazy to share with you. We are attempting to connect with all of our listeners. We have thousands of people that listen to this podcast, and we want to meet you in person. We have 4 events coming up, and I want to give you a discount code that you can use for the next week to save $300 off your ticket. The discount code is Gary Bird, and the link is going to be just down below. You can also go to smcnational.com/events. I hope to connect with you in person and help each other grow our businesses. Can't wait to see you soon.
And then speaking to those pain points. So I'll give you an example for us. One thing that when I got started this agency, I realized every agency and every marketing person I ever talked to were horrible at responding to people. Like horrible. Like sometimes they wouldn't respond. Sometimes it would take 2 or 3 days to respond. And so I was like, well, I can control that. I can respond really, really quickly. And that made us so much different because I was like, nope, you got to respond within a couple hours. You got to respond. And so we kind of bake that into the culture because I know it makes a big difference. And something that might make a big difference to your patients is like, we have same day appointments, or we have same day treatment, or you never have to we can almost always get your treatment done in the same day. Patients hate coming back to the dentist. And I know dentists never think about this. They're always just like, yeah, we got to schedule and then schedule it. And you come in, we schedule, and then you schedule again. We hate, as a patient, absolutely hate that. That's like the worst thing in the world. I would rather sit there for one day, get my stuff all done, poke me and stab me and do whatever else you need to do, and then be done. I don't want to come back and then come back and come back. And so there's little things that you can do around those pain points that makes dentistry hard to offset what patients are experiencing and make them want to come to you.
Right. It's also really funny that there's tons of, people, I guess a handful of practices I've spoken with, fear that automation is going to upset patients. And I'm like, don't you understand that if you were to really think about a millennial, Gen Z, younger generations, they almost view the fact that you can do things by yourself without needing to communicate as a differentiator. And I mean, at least in regards to NexHealth, I know this just, about only 26% of practices have patient self-scheduling, like online scheduling, right? And instead of leaning in to A, doing something that's different, B, that is, something that patients quite frankly want in a on-demand economy, digital first, they're like, no. I believe my team and the personal care that we give on the phones is the reason that people come to me. So it almost feels like there's just, people are kind of getting in their own way. And again, like a place to start, not only just speaking with customers, would be kind of like my first recommendation. Speak to 5 to 10 of them, take notes, see the common words they're using to enunciate what you do professionally, right? It may not just be providing dental care. It may be specific services. It may be the types of care. It may be specific people. But then I'd be looking around the neighborhood and understanding what your dentists nearby are doing and looking at their website, seeing how they communicate, right? What colors are they using? What logos are they using?
That's a big one.
All of those small things.
Yeah, right? A lot of times dentists don't think about what's the impact, or like how much other people around you impact the decisions that people are going to make about their dentistry.
You need to be thinking about yourself as, shelf space in a grocery store, right? You may have tons. Think about like energy bars. There are, give or take, between 10 and 20 of them in your nearby Whole Foods, right? Dentists are no different, right? And like, that's not to say that dentists are a commodity. Like I absolutely adore my own. Right. But the reason that I pick him is because he is a differentiated dentist in my book. Right. It's the care, for sure. It's the care that I get. But he was the one who communicated a before and after and made me feel that the Maryland Bridge that he could insert plus do the cleanings and all the above, that was specific to me as a customer. Right.
So if you would have said, hey, I got to refer you out for this stuff, you might have gone somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I had to do my research. I had to call up a number of folks, get on the line. I had to do my, treatment plans and go through it. And, through that communication, getting me in store, it was, the way that he communicated, I thought was head and heels above other folks. But again, I think the way to really approach kind of your own practice is to think about yourself, just like putting it on a wall or, putting it on the store shelf and say, would I pick this practice? If there's 20 of them and they all look identical, how would I as a patient make the decision to pick my own practice? Right. And I think some of the things that you were leaning on before, like imagine creating a dental practice and the headline said, the only practice where you speak to no one to get into your seat. Right. And the whole thing was automated. And you'd be like, whoa, that's not what this industry is about. But let me tell you, you would stand out because no one is doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You would stand out in a different way and it may or may not work. It may be awesome, may not, but that's a differentiator that would absolutely get reactions from people. Right. And when I say don't work, I know you want to qualify that. What I mean by don't work, maybe it attracts the wrong people. Maybe they're too young. Maybe they're not right. Like, so then you dial it in and you say, okay, we're a little bit early for this to be fully automated or all robots. But like we're starting to see this everywhere. Like McDonald's and these other places are starting to go with no man shops. Like someone's back in the back running something, but it's all machines pumping things out. So we're not far away from seeing something like that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the technology here, younger generations grow older. The technology in their life from a younger age is going to eventually be the answer for what, then older people are going to want. But just to be clear, kind of to your point here, even when you're speaking with your customers, obviously there's the qualitative research that you want to be doing, but there's really the quantitative research too, right? You want to go into your EHR, into the equivalent of a patient experience software like NexHealth. You want to pull out your data and you want to understand who is your ICP, right? What's the average age of your patient? How often are they coming in? What types of procedures are you doing? Like those are the ways to really really understand like what does your dental practice offer to the world? So there's really kind of the two sides of the coin of understanding who your general audience is. Because yes, to your point, if your ICP average age right now is 55 to 60, no, I wouldn't recommend that your headline H1 message of your website is the fully automated dentist. That makes absolutely no sense. But if you were to tell me that your average age of your ICP was closer between 20 and 30, and they were in the San Francisco or New York City or an urban region that is tech forward, then yeah, I would tell you right on spot that might be worth a try, right? In order to differentiate on a very crowded shelf in a grocery store.
Define ICP and H1 for everybody.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I hate that I did that. Ideal customer profile, right? Yep. Who is your target audience? An ICP is essentially just, listing out the characteristics and really trying to create, I don't want to say a stereotype, but it's really just trying to put together a one pager of saying, this is Bob, or this is Jerry, or this is, Sarah.
Susan. Yes.
Exactly. Right. And you're going to say, these are the characteristics. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, how tech forward they are. Did they get a degree? What do you think their average salary is? What do you think their education level is? All of these things. Right. So it's really just trying to make it so that you have a really focused idea of who you are going after. So when you're creating your marketing messages, when you're creating your scripts for your front office team to communicate with that individual or with that individual in mind, it makes it so it's really tailored. So it feels like that person is right at home at your practice.
So good. That's really, really good.
And then H1 is just literally you could imagine the first 7 words when you hit, dentist, mydentalpractice.com, right?
It's the top of your website. It's the main real estate.
It's the main real estate is above, what people would say is above the fold.
Yep. Good stuff. Yeah. So anything else down that road as far as making sure that you're getting in touch with your patients, making sure that you understand who they are? Is there anything else around that you've kind of experienced, that you've seen that people should really be focusing on? Yeah.
The thing that there's what should I say? And then there's distributing the what you just came up with. Right. And immediately the first things that come to mind are just like, what is your content strategy and what channels are you going to communicate your differentiation to the market, right? And we can get into a whole conversation around what are the best social media channels and, how often should you be communicating? But the thing that I find with most dentists and dental practice that I speak with is something that I think that you and I spoke about when we just did the last show on NexHealth, which is that, classically offices don't have time to make content. And I think what people are not realizing is that, with the iPhone being in the way that it is, the camera is just so tip-top shape. The distance between you creating content and having no content is quite literally hitting the red record button on the camera app on your iPhone, right? And if you said, I don't have time, there is always time in a day to find about 30 seconds to 1 minute, right? And that 1 minute, all it has to be is taking your phone, recording an office manager saying, what was the best thing that happened today? Or what was a funny story that happened today? Or putting that same phone and asking for a customer who's sitting in your seat smiling because they're so happy with the procedure that you just did and say, can you just share with the world what just happened here, right? Because ultimately what ends up happening, the reason that people blame time is because deep down they're just nervous and scared that what they created isn't quote unquote good enough.
Well, dentists are not typically your outward content creator mindset, just typically, right? That's just not the personality types. And there's other industries like that as well. Dentists aren't the only ones that way. So they do struggle with that. And then after you get over that, then there's the process of actually taking the time to do it. And then there's the fear of looking stupid, right? Like that is a real thing. I know everybody always says, I always tell people, everybody says this, I don't care what people think, right? I don't care what people think. Until you go to start posting content online. When I first started posting, I literally was like, oh, I obviously do care. And I'm really concerned. And what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Or what is this group going to say? What are they going to, is this going to hurt us? Is this going to help us? And then and you have to literally overcome that. That is a big obstacle.
Yeah. I mean, even when you just said that, dentists in so many ways, when it comes to the procedures, filling a cavity, making a tooth, they are perfectionists and they're incredible at what they do. And when you think about content, perfect is really just hitting the 80% mark and shipping fast as opposed to holding on to that content until
dentists don't like that typically.
I know, right? So at least from, something that I tell my team all the time here at NexHealth is, I'd rather ship the 80% mark and be people who are thinking about quantity, and that the quality comes from just the number of reps that happen over a period of time, as opposed to focusing on that one asset and it never shipping because you're just in your own way scared of what somebody on the other side of the post might actually think.
100%. Yep. We're going to wrap this up. If someone has questions about NexHealth, what you guys are doing over there, how you help dental offices, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and get some help?
You can either reach out to me directly at alec.goldman@nexhealth.com. Obviously happy to have a conversation and, just share a little bit about what NexHealth is doing. If not, if it's easier, just go to nexhealth.com. Click get a demo. Even if you don't want the demo, just to ask questions. The number of people at NexHealth who are who've been in this industry for ages, right? We're talking anywhere between 5 and 10 plus years. They know the nooks and crannies of not just NexHealth, but all the different software out there to help automate and grow a practice. That is another great resource. Just the team here at NexHealth, I think, is extremely wise and would be able to help just even provide thoughts, let alone.
And when does your podcast drop? I know you guys are dropping a podcast soon. I want to plug that.
We're doing it daily at this point. So this is something that, had to take a little bit of my own medicine here, where I was like, wow, is this podcast going to be any good? I've only been on a handful, 10, 20 of these myself, let alone hosting. And that's a whole different skill set of asking questions. So they can, to tune in. Obviously, we're running the How I Grew My Practice podcast, where we've had the Gary Bird on our show and continue to have other dentist office managers, marketing experts. But yeah, it's this industry is incredible. Speaking with dentists on a day-to-day basis is far from probably what I thought I would be doing. But at the end of the day, you realize that these are just individuals who are—
That's who your clients are. You're following your own medicine.
Crazy multitaskers, right? For me, it's I'm thinking about content and brand all day long. These people have to operate and do the hands and mouth type procedure during the day, but they can't shut off at night. So they have to be thinking about that during the day, but then be thinking about, how am I leading my team? How am I best managing? How am I doing marketing? How am I standing out in a crowd? How am I standing out on a grocery shelf, right? All of those things are the things that they have to be thinking about. So just the most upward respect for the folks that we get to serve every day, knowing how hard it is just to be running a practice right now.
Totally. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. You did a great job.
Appreciate it, Gary. Thanks for having me.